Hey dudes, welcome back to another episode of our Rhomas Men's Team podcast. You are about to listen to one of our prior team meetings. If you ever want to join one of our live sessions that we have every Monday and Friday, head over to rhomas.com. That's RHOMAS.com and put your email in and we will send you a live link every time we record. We generally record on Mondays and Fridays. So if you ever want to be on the actual podcast, like we bring men up all the time to talk about their goals, talk about their obstacles, etc., head over to rhomas.com. And then also, if you want to help support the channel grow and also have access to exclusive content, book reviews, extra whiteboard sessions, etc., and some coaching sessions, head over to patreon.com and support us. We would love it. But if not, no biggie. We'll see you on the live sessions. Later, dudes. Enjoy this podcast.
Here we are, dude. We're live. Excuse my bedhead. It's just how I woke up and just started rolling, dude. I can't be bothered.
Like an Abercrombie model, dude.
Yeah.
Is Abercrombie still hip? Is that still hip?
I don't think so. I think they don't have shirtless boys standing outside of their stores anymore.
Yeah.
Remember they dabbled with teen boys. They're like, we'll put some teens outside with their shirts off and see what happens.
Plus,
I don't think they do that.
They used to have like naked people in their. Did you ever see that in their pamphlets?
Never went inside. I never went inside of Abercrombie, dude.
No,
I
it's
used
not,
to see
not
the dudes.
inside.
Where?
Like, I used to date someone back in high school. It's just she used to get the monthly or whatever frequency it was, monthly mailer, and it would be like a magazine, and there's naked people in there.
What?
Yeah, didn't make any sense. But
like full nudity?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it showed below the waist, but definitely above the waist. 100%. I remember it was like, what is this? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very confusing because it's a clothing company.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of strange. Yeah, I know. I used to see the dudes stand outside with their shirts off and just like walk by like, "Fuck you, dude," and just like I was like, I'm never going in there, and I still to this day haven't been inside an Abercrombie to my knowledge. I might have walked in, I don't remember, but I do remember spending exercising a lot of personal energy and being like, I'm not going in there. And it was like a weird hang up I had, but I'm not going in there.
Yeah. I think I was in there once or twice. It's definitely a different culture. It smells like cedar, I feel like, and it's like super dark, and the music is unbelievably annoyingly loud. From what I remember, like 20 years ago.
Now that you said that, now I know I have definitely been in there because when I was saying when you said it's really dark in there, I'm like, yeah, I actually think that is what Abercrombie's like inside. So yes. I think I've been in there once.
Oh, against your will, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's just go check out the jeans. Yeah.
Ray said you can't be within 250 yards of Abercrombie, court ordered. So, how'd it go, man? You got to report back on the ice bath. Got to have it.
I got to look into the the science of this, but I genuinely feel like I get more benefit rocking like a low 50 degree ice bath. Like I did that 34 degree thing, dude. It was physically like my buttocks.
Oh, yeah.
I feel, and that's the only way I could describe them. It was the meat of my butt. Fucking felt like it was being like someone was punching it. Like it hurt really badly.
Oh yeah, it definitely hurts.
It hurt so bad, and I wasn't prepared for that. Like I feel like I would do better in a tub where I could lower my entire body, because I was in my bathtub, so I went down like back first, like I was being like Operation Dumbo Drop, just like lower down, and I lowered my body in, and the parts of my body that weren't in the ice bath, it feels like they almost talk the parts of them that were in to be like, dude, get out. Like, you don't have to be in there. So I need to be full. I need my whole body emerged. But, dude, it was cool. I mean, I forced myself to do it. It was just the reason I say I failed is because I'd pop out, pop back in, pop out, and it would just start to hurt so bad. I'm like, dude, this is not good. And then my my neck seized, where it was like I had a kink in my neck, and it tightened to the point where it was like so painful for the rest of it was to the point where I was so that was Monday night. That was Monday. Tuesday night I was trying to parallel park, and I was just like I like dude, I couldn't move it was horrible. Yeah. But that being said, it just sparked me where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna now do it again and just gradually step myself down, because like, dude, I've done it to 50 degrees. Is like you're in there, your breathing's kind of slow and steady. You get out and you're not like in shock. And I actually really like that. So I'm going to start slowly stepping it down to where I do that, because, yeah, dude, that was like That hurt. It just hurt. It hurt me. I did it and it hurt me. And I was like, I didn't know it was supposed to hurt. Now I know it's supposed to hurt. I'm fine. I was like, oh, I'm doing this wrong. Dude, it was so cold. And by the way, 122 pound bag of ice, dude, brought it down to 34 degrees.
Well, okay, so let's explore that because I think I saw one of the guys on there on the Discord saying that his bath was similar. But are you using a pointer, like a laser pointer to?
Yes.
Are you submerging a?
It was a laser pointer.
Okay, I've got a funny feeling that you're pointing it at a piece of ice, essentially. That's what
I thought. That's what I thought. But then I'd hit it when the spaces between the water. And even as I did move it all the way up, if I went all the way up to the water where it was coming out, that was about, I think it said 37. Which is crazy. But I thought the same thing. I'm like, I must be hitting an ice cube. But I'd hit it at big 31, 34. Either way, it was, I've dunked my hand in many coolers at family barbecues. That's what the water was, dude. It was hand hurting, like all day family party cooler water, dude. It was freezing.
It's excruciating, definitely.
Yeah, but I'm sure another bag of ice. I would have been laying in just a slurry of ice, which again I'm sure is good. But yeah, I'm gonna work my way down to where I can do that successfully for 10 minutes. Because Jesus, good God, dude, that was brutal.
Yeah. Did you keep your hands and feet out? Like what was out of the water? Yeah.
It was my body. That's the other thing too. My bathtub is a little small, so like I could get my whole back and torso, and then like I would alternate because my legs were really tight from running. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna now that my back's been in here, I want my legs to be submerged. So I would have to sit up to let all my legs be under. But really, it was just like my butt, my back, and my core, and then my legs and arms are for the most part out, just because of the size of my bathtub.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be fair, honest, I don't know at what point it's unhealthy. I just know that when I did the 100 pounds originally, it was just to say, okay, what would be the most extreme thing that I could do in this? So that honestly, if I had to be honest, it's just so that if somebody else coming to the table, and this was before we started Rhomas, so this was like last year when I first originally did it, that if somebody else were to tell me that they did it, that they would not beat 100 pounds. I try to figure out, it's like, what's the insane level that somebody would do, or anybody that I know would do, and I want to try to double it. So that way I don't risk sitting down at a campfire with friends and they say, oh yeah, like I did 105 pounds. I wanted to pick that number, but I don't know if it's healthy. That's just being truthful.
Oh, that's a good disclaimer. I wish we hashed that out before my buttocks seized.
Sorry, dude.
That way I didn't walk in with 2 20-pound bags of ice and have to explain myself to my wife and my babysitter at 2 in the afternoon. It was like 1:30. Brittany was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Just taking an ice bath." Oh, it's so funny. But I think there is, like you were saying, it is an exercise in mental toughness, dude. It for sure was an exercise in mental toughness. Yeah. But in terms of like cold water therapy, dude, I swear to God, man, if you can get that 50-something degrees, that's where I think you can really kind of submerge yourself, chill out, breathe, and obviously keep working that down. I'm sure there are benefits to like really shocking your body, like you're saying too. It really just works, whatever works for you. But yeah, it was tight, man. If anything, it got me back into being like, I got to get good with cold water. Like that was unacceptable. So I'm gonna start that. That's gonna be a daily thing. Which all this came from was me mentioning the fact that I took cold showers. So,
that is correct.
I don't know why you took it to that level. I don't know why I had to kink my neck.
That is correct. Well, and also just to let the guys know. So I just listened to a Joe Rogan interview with him and Matt Frazier. Matt Frazier is the guy who won the CrossFit Games 5 years in a row. So he's, I think he is the champion of. He's the guy who's won the most CrossFit Games. Which, if you guys are ever looking to get pumped up a little bit, especially around fitness, go on Netflix or go on Amazon and watch the CrossFit Games documentary. They're amazing, in my opinion. So him and Joe Matt and Joe were talking about ice baths, and they said they got their baths to similar degrees, like in the 30s, low 40s, etc. So I'm going to assume that one of them, especially Matt, because he's got a team of professionals working with him, have vetted that number. So while I can't point to a certain study that says getting the temperature in the 30s or low 40s isn't valuable or is valuable, I think I can make a pretty reasonable hypothesis that you're good. I also looked up Now here's where it gets a little squirrely. I looked up the degrees of water that humans can be in before they start experiencing hypothermia. And in the 30s, the scale was like, you can sit in there for, I think 15 to 30 minutes before, you're at risk. So just keep that in mind if anybody's going to do it in the future.
For sure.
But I just tested myself. So you can test yourself. You can have somebody look at your lips to see if they're blue. Move your hands. Actually, my hands, I don't know about your hands, Matt, but it sounds like you're probably similar. I couldn't move my hand. So if I said, if you threw me a ball and I try to open my hand up quickly, literally my hand would open like this. Like it was like, yeah. So those are sort of maybe some prerequisite signs. But you're well before it. Like
Yeah.
I'm just guessing, but I was assuming that I would definitely know. Like there'd be varying degrees of increasing intensity before you experience like hardcore hypothermia.
Yeah, I mean, you'll know, dude. I feel like your body will be like, dude, get out. I think I had hypothermia after 1 minute, but
it's brutal though, man. It is brutal.
Yeah, it's tough, man. What else? What's going on with you, dude? How's the week been?
Week's been great. Hit all the goals, the scorecard. A+ always, and that's not because of me. It's because of the guys who show up every day to the scorecard practice team. Now it's just pure habit. Like if I get anything less than an A+, it's some sort of fluke because every day, again, Ray and Jake and a few other guys show up on this thing, and it's just now part of the routine. I also got to give Ray and Jake a whole bunch of credit because they show up on the Rhomas workouts team every morning. Especially Jake, he's out here in California, so he's waking up at 5:50, 5:55, or 6 a.m. to get on the workout squad. But yeah, man, we're killing it there. And then big milestone hit this week. We're at 240 million in management, 243 million in management in our financial office. So we're doing our best to kill it there. And like I was telling you, Matt, before we got on the podcast, now it's just figuring out how to get to that next level. And it's that whole quote of what got you here will not get you to where you want to go. So it's changing up things a bit. It's taking bigger risks to get to that next level. With every single time I've talked to a business person that I respect, every single time across the board, they all have the common prescription, which is I had the balls to do it. That's what they all said. Like you have to have the guts to do it. You have to have the guts to put the money down to get to the next level. You have to have the guts to put the money down to hire the next person. You have to have the guts to put the money down to do the next batch of marketing, the biggest batch of marketing you've ever done. So like those types of things. Because to be honest, it feels good seeing a certain amount of thousands of dollars going into your bank account every week or whatever that number is. Mm-hmm. But then it's like, doesn't feel so good that you got to write a $4,000 check, $5,000 check for marketing. It's like, are you going to do it or are you not going to do it? Because you can keep that money or you can bet on yourself and bet on the business to get to the next level. So I always get emotionally conflicted. It's like, because of where I came from, it's like, those are not small numbers. They might be small numbers to certain people, but they're not small numbers to me. So anyway.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that's got to be a tough battle, man. That's something I get cheap around certain things, and it's like it doesn't help, man. It doesn't, So I've been really trying to do that. Of like, the mission for this year really for me is just to kind of, keep doing my thing that I'm doing and just expand into a different areas that I'm interested in. And yeah, that's the same thing. Where just in order to free myself up to do that, to me it's experiences like a big bill in terms of like I need a babysitter, I need this, I need that, blah 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 blah. Yep. And it's the same exact process where I was like, but I want to keep, but it's like, yeah, but I won't be able to, do all the other things. So yeah, it really does for me. It helps to be like, what is my day to day? Will I still be able to get to do my day to day stuff? You know what I mean? Then money becomes almost kind of like a means to an end. And I know if you don't have a lot, you're like, fuck you, dude. But it's like, well, once you have it, then it's like, well, what are you going to do with it? Because, you can, like you were saying, Wes, you can almost, and I'd be curious if you think about this idea of like save squandering, where you just like pinch pennies so hard to the point where you just cut yourself off from opportunities where it's like, you got to kind of, there has to be a flow to it, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. I mean, and you do have to play out that abstraction, that future-based abstraction, because I can tell you from working in the business that I work in, I have seen so this is a very recent example. seen someone who's got literally millions of dollars of investable cash, right? Not counting the value of their home, not counting any of that, millions of dollars. And it has caused a fight in their household because the one of the spouses wants to buy a car, and not a fancy car, just a Toyota, right? Like nothing fancy, just wants to buy a car. By the way, they're in their 80s. They are fighting over this, right? Fighting over this. That doesn't make sense. Now, it does make sense because I think that guy probably has I got the similar DNA that he has. He wants to win the game so badly that he's now removed himself from the utility of the resource, because he's turned the acquiring of money of that resource into the sole purpose of the game. Because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. It's literally detracting from his life and denting his marriage in his 80s with his wife, right? It doesn't make any sense. So I think where I have to get to, and all of us listening, I think the quote is, you first spend your time trying to get money, but then eventually you have to switch. If you're trying to get to the next level, you have to spend your money trying to get your time back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's the shift that I'm struggling to make. Yep. If that makes sense.
No, absolutely, dude. I mean, dude, it was I was cheaping out on Premiere, and this is like an example. I think, and again, for anybody, I wouldn't download Adobe Creative Cloud because I'm like, it's too expensive. I heard it was expensive. I didn't even verify. I was just like, I don't know. I can't have that. That's like, I can't have Adobe Creative. And then like I got it, and it's opened up a ton of new things for me to do that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Now that I have it, like I completely figured out how to. It was funny because I knew with Psych-Null, like the way I'm doing it right now is it's not ideal. And then I tried it. Me getting Adobe Creative Cloud took me down a little road where I tried a bunch of different things, and now I think I finally arrived at like a format that works for it that I actually really like. But yeah, dude, it's crazy when you start to invest a little bit in yourself, how much that pays off in dividends. Even, forget about the money of it, although that is a thing, but it's like, it's just in terms of life quality and kind of like expanding yourself, expanding potential. It's like, you really do need, like you're saying, Wes, to switch it up. The same old tactics that got you to point A are not going to get you to point B.
Yep.
They'll just keep you at point A, and, things will just kind of scroll around you.
Yeah. And, the thing is, I was very fortunate enough, for one reason, because of what my mom taught me, to like always reinvest back in myself. So like in college, I'd be taking business guys out to dinner constantly and paying $200, $300, $400, $500 in a night for dinner to get the relationships. And so I had zero problem with that. So where my issue lies is self-advancement. I'm cool with. Like, I'll spend whatever, because the money's only so large. You can only spend so much money on a massage for yourself or on a gym membership for yourself. But the struggle that I come into is like moving an organization, right? Like a team of people now. Well, now those numbers get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10x larger. Yeah. When you talk about hiring a person, right? Let's just say minimum you pay, 50, 60, 70, $80,000. And right, you start to get into numbers that are like, and also you don't know if it's going to work out, right? Yep. Like that's the trick. So that's the tricky part that I'm personally battling with right now.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, again, for every person at a job, there's somebody paying for your life being like, what the fuck, man? It's like, well, I just want to look at YouTube for like 10 minutes. And they're like, dude, I'm losing sleep over the number. Yeah. Yep. It's always funny. It's always funny to look at it from that, perspective.
Oh yeah. Well, and the thing about like payroll, you have to pay, and this is why I think it's so fascinating. Why you should experience different seats at the table, because I don't know about you, but I now have a different experience of when I first started, like, let's say interning or started working, when I was a young kid, and you have a boss, and you say like, oh, then what's up that guy's ass, and like, so I wouldn't make decisions like that. It's like, well, just like you said, Matt, it's like, yeah, because he's paying for you, and you're goofing off. Right, like go sit on the side of the table where you're writing that check, and also you're paying taxes for payroll tax and doing all these things, and you're not that good at what you're doing right now because you're new. Right, that is not that's not an easy thing to stomach, man.
Yeah, man, dude, it was funny because I remember I worked with Andrew. I was painting for him, and he, not like a dick. He was just telling me, he was like, when I first started, he was like, dude, if you can't do this, I can't have you doing this, and it was like I had to like really learn how to do it. You know, thank God he like was patient enough to teach me, because that was like, and it was like immediately obvious to me, him being like, dude, like I can't financially have you on if you don't produce. Like that's just what it, you know. He's like, it's not like a personal thing. It's just, it just won't work. So that was kind of an interesting thing to be like, oh yeah, I gotta like make sure, because a lot of times the problem with like certain like working for like humongous companies is that you kind of can slip between the cracks and just get paid to just like for kind of doing nothing, and then you get used to that and get comfortable with that. But I also think it deeply frustrates people to do that, just to like sit around and not do anything all day.
Definitely.
But yeah, man, like it's for me, it was pretty cool, because I've been in situations like that where I'm like, what are we doing? Just showing up, and there's someone, just some faceless character, just, you know, with an oceanic bank accounts cutting me a check to just exist. It's like, yeah, man, being like one-on-one with a person who's just like, look, man, like you either produce or you don't. If you don't, adios. It's like it like forces you to step up and forces you to do stuff. It's pretty tough.
Oh yeah, I think one of the biggest secrets, if I could get across to guys listening, is working for free. Hands down was one of the biggest secrets or things that I have executed that I was lucky. It was, I didn't come up with it. I had mentors teach me that. And because it took at least a portion of the risk off of the table for the employer. I could tell you there's no way I would have gotten to Wall Street, on the exchange, none of that stuff, if it wasn't for working for free. And I think so many people hear that and like, I wouldn't work for free, I'm going to get taken advantage of. It's like, dude, you're not valuable in the space. Right, like when you first start at something, you got to make a decision. You either go and learn it on your own, so you go and you pay a college, which absorbs a crazy amount of money to learn it, and I would even say you barely learn the craft when you go into college, or you go and you work in the field of doing it. Well, when you go and work in the field of doing it, that's where you run into that conflict, right? Your very first interview, somebody says, "What experience do you have?" And it's like, "Well, none, because you haven't given it to me yet." Well, the risk profile of that is asymmetrical on the side of the employer. They're going to pay you for you to do subpar work, and they're going to have to take their time or one of their staff's time to teach you. I think it's one of the most underlooked at areas in our career economy is we don't have typically unpaid apprenticeships for the most part. You know, a lot of people frown on it. It's like, what are you talking about? It's just logical. Like, people come to me all the time and say, hey, can like my son or daughter intern for you guys? And I say, like, yeah, but we're not going to pay them. Right. And that, no offense. And I can say that with confidence because I worked for free for years. And I tell them, I said, it's a very simple equation. When your son or daughter comes to work for us, I'm going to, or somebody on our team is going to have to spend time teaching them and then correcting their errors. And then they're going to leave within 3-4 months. Yeah. You know, I mean, so where's the value proposition there?
Yeah. Well, here's a question. I see it popping up of like, how do people work for free if they can't afford to pay for their stuff?
Oh, this is why actually having experience helps, because I can answer that exact question. Here's what I did. And here's what Matt did. Like, you know, like this is why you have to take the hard roads. Like, don't fucking ever take easy roads out, because then you can't come to these types of questions and actually answer them with honesty. So I can tell you exactly what I did, exactly what Matt did. You go and you get a job that you actually can do and do provide value to. And if that's working at Starbucks or McDonald's, doesn't matter, right? Like, go and work those jobs where you actually can bring value. If you can move, you can bring value, right? If you can move, you can sweep the floor, right? So that's where you earn food. That's when you earn money for food. And then you take the rest of your time and you go and you work for free. And please, like, spare me the excuses. And you know, guys, that I say that out of love, but like, and I'm not bragging by any means, but I was going to college full time. So here's what I did. I loaded my classes up on Tuesday and Thursday, went to class. I think it started at, what was our earliest class, Matt? Like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m.?
Yeah, I think it's around 8 a.m.
Yeah, so 8 a.m. class on Tuesday and Thursday, all the way up until 10 p.m. at night. So I loaded my classes on those 2 days, right? And then I worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then portions of Saturday and Sunday, you know. So Matt and I, for instance, so I would go and I'd work for free. And then that's where I get my professional experience. And then I would work with Matt on, let's say, odd jobs. So we would help his cousin rehab houses, and his cousin would pay us, you know, $10 an hour or whatever it was at the time. So like, that's how you do it. It's very rational, and, you know, no excuses. Like, we live in a country, you know, just luckily, just out of sheer luck, where you can actually do that stuff. Now, is there time for watching 4 hours of Netflix? No, but that's the decision that you have to make.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's one of those things too. It's like it all depends really what your kind of goal is. It's like for people who are just like, look, I want to get a job that kind of pays for my stuff, that's remotely interesting, that like renders me comfortable to live. It's like that's a different path. But for people who are like, I'm trying to like, really get after something or crush it, it's like and a lot of people want the, let's say, fruits of the latter path of like, I'm trying to absolutely crush, and it's like, yeah, mate, but it's it's very hard, and you almost have to live, because being that so many people don't, let's say, and I always get tripped up on this verbiage, but like absolutely, let's say, work in a capacity where they get, this is always my goal, where I have like, 80% of dominion over my own life. That's all I really ever wanted. And, that's what I kind of value. Some people want to have stuff that's like, super nice things and whatever. But yeah, man, like I don't see there being anything wrong with working a couple jobs. That's just how I grew up too. It was just kind of like, yeah, you were like getting pulled out of bed on Saturday. Like, come on, you're coming with us to do like demolition. It was a family business, so like working 6-7 days a week is like, it's not a big deal to me. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, there can be companies that do. Here's where I think that the hang up is on unpaid labor for stuff like this. You do have companies who promise that learning relationship, who have you licking envelopes and doing nothing of really of value. And I've been in situations where companies do that. They say like, oh, we're going to give you all this experience, but we're just using you to do kind of like neck down work, and you're blah blah blah. So that's, and in my opinion, this is what I found because luckily I got to intern again at like in like my early 30s, and I had the capacity to be like, nah, like I'm not doing that. I'm going somewhere else. And they're like, well, I'm like, I don't care. I'm not doing that. And it's like, that's something that's kind of a missing piece of the puzzle a lot of the times. I'd watch people, and they were younger than me, getting these internships, and be like, this bullshit, this sucks. And it's like, go tell a lady, you're here, you're paying to be here. Fuck this, leave, go somewhere else. And even my school itself would be like, well, it's not that easy. And I'm like, oh, it is, because I'm not going to go there tomorrow, and you got to find it somewhere else. Like, that's how easy this is. It's like, it is that easy. But that can be kind of uncomfortable. But like, that's kind of almost the intensity you have to approach these things with, and not even in a dickish way. Be like, I'm not getting what I'm looking for out of this. And again, this is only, it's like, do you have to do this? Not at all. But it's like, if you are frustrated with your current circumstances, this is kind of the things that can really, really help if you sacrifice some of your time. And it's like, if you're like, oh, I don't want to do that, it's like, well, find an area that you find meaningful. And that way it's like, it's not even a sacrifice. You're just doing something, you're spending your time doing a thing you enjoy. I think that is one of like the bitter pills a lot of people don't want to swallow, about like really trying to get themselves ahead, or not even like, because I hate to think of it in that linear thing, like you're just going to make more money and everything's going to be better, because it's not. You end up getting like more stress, and there's more stressors. But it's like, if you want a greater sense of control and mastery over your life, what Wes is saying, yes, it's like it's the truth. It's like, is it ethical? Is it ethical for companies to use free labor? It all depends on the relationship and how much they're actually mentoring, teaching, and how much they have your actual best interest in mind. But the responsibility for rooting out those kind of relationships ultimately does lie on you, because yes, there are people who will take advantage of you. There's also people who will mentor you and appreciate your gusto in a way that kind of advances your own personal agenda. But it's like, it's on you to figure that out. And when you're 21, yeah, you're not the best at figuring that out, but that's how you learn.
Yeah, I mean, I personally believe that capitalism, let's say business, is one of the most concrete and accurate ways of experiencing human psychology, because there's clear and identifiable units of measure via the transactions. So, for instance, like, you can tell how valuable the thing that you're providing is, because in exchange, you get a unit of return versus. So I love it. So that's why I preferred to work, because it teaches you things. So for instance, right, like when you go into an environment, a business environment, you have to behave a certain way, because if you don't behave a certain way, the customers are not going to respond in a satisfactory way in response to you. Right. So like that. So versus and like you're not going to make money, if that makes sense. I like it not just for advancing my career, but for also just living in a more accurate way that's very, very similar to how humans live I would say in nature, if that makes sense. Like if you look at capitalism, historically why doesn't communism work? Well, and from what at least we've been taught and what from I've learned from people, well, because it knocks off incentive based reward, right? Like there's a glitch there. Humans, in my opinion, and I think there's a lot of data to back this up, we do what we are incentivized to do. Now, show me an area of life that is more equipped to do that than business. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right, like you get what you put into it. Now, there's other areas, of course, like fitness, etc. But I think for the majority, the reason I like business so much is because it allows me to exercise that muscle. Is what I'm doing valuable to you? And if it is, then you're going to give me a unit of return back. And if it's not, then I know that pretty quickly. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
Instead of asking people like their opinion.
No,
it's like, hey, Matt, do you think it's valuable? And you say, yeah, sure, because you're a nice guy. But it's like, okay, well, give me $100 for it. It's like, I don't know if it's that good.
But yeah, the wallet's upstairs. yeah. This is sorry. While I was kind of hung up too on the comment. It's like, I'm not just saying, and I think this is a valid perspective. Like, not everybody has the ability to work 80 hours a week or the cash to donate their time to get ahead. It's like, that is true within let's say the moral perspective of, whether or not why people have less than others. And it's like, yeah, there's a ton of things that go into that are kind of unaddressed and blah, 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 blah. However, then this is kind of more the perspective I think we're coming from. It's like, that's a reality for sure. But there's also the reality that, well, if everybody isn't able to do that, what are the applicable steps to be able to become a person who can do that? And anyone can start at least trying to be able to one day do that. Now, I also know a lot of people who would, this idea of like working for free would blow their mind. I've worked with a ton of them. I can also say that a lot of them are spending X amount of dollars a week on cigarettes, are drinking, spending that money, are, if you looked at their cell phone screen report, spend probably 3 or 4 hours a day on their phone. So it's like, yeah, is that their fault? No, because it's like, it's almost like they didn't get to see another way, or, like I got lucky. I grew up amongst entrepreneurs and people who had their own businesses. So that level of work ethic was modeled to me to where I could, it's common sense. But yeah, it's like not everyone does have that, but it ultimately lies on them, if they're frustrated with their situation, to become somebody who does. And if they don't want to do that, they don't have to, obviously. But it's like when I would observe, people, because I've worked a ton of jobs that were like that level, and working with dudes who are, who are operating like that. And it's like, you get a lot of them who want to take the next steps to advance up. A lot of people just kind of say they want to. The boss is an idiot. The boss is a dick. The boss doesn't know anything. And it's like, 9:30 a.m. and they're like just hankering to take a half-hour coffee break. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, yes, it is a reality, but it also is a reality that will just most likely result in people just complaining about their circumstances rather than trying to transcend them. And again, it's not fair. None of this stuff is very fair. And that's also why when you really think about this on a generational level, where it's like, sometimes this thing that we're, me and Wes are talking about is a intergenerational process. And, you might not obviously be, and I'm using this like figurative speech, be driving a Lamborghini. But in order to get, maybe you never will achieve financial stability, but you can kind of roll the ball generationally for your kids to one day be able to, because of like, you just fell on the sword that is actually focusing your time on a thing and working. And I also do think that approach, whether or not you reach that state where you have like, free time. There's some people who just have to like sack up, get a job that they kind of hate, and just provide. And it's like, yeah, that's tough, man. That's the majority of people. But within that, you can kind of lose yourself to like, let me have a couple beers. Let me come home. I hate my job so much. I'm going to turn my brain off and watch TV for 6 hours a night. Like that also happens too. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, man, it's not fair. It never will be. But here's the steps you can take to ensure you're not on that unfair side of it.
Yeah, and Matt, I think it's important. I'm reading the comments as well simultaneously. So number one, I think there's a fork in the road. So you start to split the groups. Yeah, if you don't want those things, right, or if you're fine with it, then yeah, don't go and work. Don't do the extra sacrifice. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like you can live whatever life you want and not have to work for free, not have to do the 80 hours and so on. totally cool. So, but I think, and Matt, I think I hear what you're saying. If you're complaining though that you don't have the things that you want, that's different. Now you have to go on the other side. It's like, okay, do you actually want to change? Right? Like, do you want it? Okay, if you want it, and if I were sitting down next to you and I were your brother, I would speaking you out of love, but giving you a little tough love. It's like, look, let's go in your schedule. If you're saying that you don't have the time or the resources, Matt, I don't know about you, but I've never, 0 times have I talked to somebody who actually wants it and who says, hey, can you give me some feedback here? There's never been a time where I said like, yeah, you're right. You don't have any time.
Yeah.
Right. If I take inventory of it, it's like, dude, like you press the snooze button on your alarm 10 times in the morning. That's just the very first thing. Let's cut that bullshit out right now. All of a sudden you gained a half hour. Right? You take 2 showers a day for 25 minutes. Let's cut it down to 1. Like all of those types of things. Now, they might sound extreme, but again, this is the category of people who maybe want something more. It's like you might have to do some things. And by the way, I don't think cutting out a shower a day is extreme. But I think there's a lot of things where people say, oh, that was extreme, Wes, that you did. It's like, it's not extreme. Like, what are you talking about? You know what extreme is? Living in a developing world country that, right, like that can only drink water that's like produced from streams that are unhealthy, right? Like that's extreme. Like having to make the decision of, am I going to take the risk of getting this parasite from drinking this water, or am I going to die from underhydration, right? Yeah. But to Ray's point, yeah, I like to think that I've experienced that. So not the water thing, but I've experienced coming from a place that didn't have all of those things, didn't have the connections and so on. So here's what I did. Started working when I was 11 years old at a golf course because that's the only place that would hire me. I didn't get paid for weeks because I was the smallest dude there. I didn't have a reputation. Eventually I got paid. And then I also worked at nighttime. This was while I was going to school, also worked at nighttime eventually at my grandmom's restaurant that she worked at. Originally started working for food. So they would pay me literally in French fries and pretzels, which, by the way, was amazing.
Awesome.
Eventually, right after I think a year or 2 of that, eventually they started paying me. Now, here's the shitty part. Did I have time? No, if you count that like I was playing basketball and on the team and so on. Here's what sucked. My basketball coach came to me one time. He's like, hey, you could be really good at this sport, but every time we go to a tournament over the weekends, you can't show up. And said, well, yeah, because I'm working. His response was, well, why don't you just cut back the working a little bit? And in my head, I'm like, he doesn't get it. Like I have to. Like it'd be stupid for me. I can't not eat, right? I can't not bring in money. So yeah, are there sacrifices? Of course there are fucking sacrifices, but that's the decision that I had to make. Or I could say, no, yep, not important. So I'll have the other life and not work and so on. So who's ever making comments in the comment section that's saying like, yeah, not everybody has that. I get it. But coming from somebody who didn't have those things, I can tell you that it was purely a decision. And that's not to be a hard ass about it. I'm just saying, like, we have been so blessed. It's a 4% probability of living in America. We're so blessed that we have all these opportunities. Yes, unfortunately, it comes down to making a decision on whether or not you want to, and the sacrifices on whether or not you want to take those decisions.
Yeah, and I mean, and I do understand, Lucas's point too, is like a lot of people work really hard and don't get shit. And it's like, well, that's I think the hang up. It's like, I think that might be more of a perspective thing where it's like, yeah, I mean, people get they get taken advantage of and ground into a pulp by companies. They just join a company and that's just that. Like with the companies, like you got to work overtime, you got to miss your kid's stuff, blah 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 blah. And it's like, dude, I get that, and I think that sucks. It ultimately, though, is upon the person to just then start to try to look around. It's like, well, not everybody can. It's like, well, that it's kind of debatable, and it's like, and also like the whole thing of like a lot of hardworking people don't get shit. It's like, I mean, is a house and food and providing for the family, that's a serious fucking thing when you have kids, and it's like, that sucks. But it's like, again, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a generational thing where like our grandparents had more of a utilitarian approach to life where like, even like my parents are like, just get a job. If you get a job, you fucking did it. Now with us, it's like, oh, getting a job sucks. You need to become that. Like the fence post just keeps getting moved out further and further what everybody expects. But yeah, it's one of those things. If you're not happy with your circumstances or the opportunities for your children, you have to do something different than you're currently doing. That is the reality of it. Whether, how you feel about that's how you feel about that, but that's kind of the reality, dude. It's like, you can wait for stimulus checks, but it's like that's not going to do anything for you, man.
Nope.
There has to be a massive behavioral change, and it's within, like you were saying, Wes. It's like those things that you had to do that could be perceived as as like, oh, that's unfair. You shouldn't have to do that. Blah blah blah. Can be the things that eventually define a better life for you. That's kind of what we're saying. Like there's that whole thing I've talked about this before. The triangles that I think it was Jung talked about it. When you're younger, everything's open for you, and then you know society and what you have to do kind of constricts you to the point where it's almost unbearable and unfair and ridiculous. And then after you master a thing and go through that constriction, your world kind of opens back up. So yeah, man. I mean, dude, I think there's valid points all around. But at the end of the day, if you're like you're saying, Wes, talking about like results, it's like, well, I can't work there. Well, like figure out. Even here's the other thing too. Even communicating the desire to a person who owns a company, be like, look, right now I'm kind of strapped. Here's my situation. I don't have anything. I really want to get ahead. I really want to do this. Could I just come in like one day, try to figure out like a few hours a week and just clean up and just, you know, blah, blah, blah. Few people are going to be like, man, get the fuck out of here. They're going to be like, wow, that's kind of admirable. Like you'd be surprised how much those kind of walls melt down when you kind of just expressed interest to get ahead. And it's, you know, is everybody going to take you up on it? No, but somebody will eventually, rather than just being like, I'm going to work this job as hard as I can for 30 years and just pray to God this company takes care of me. It's like, yeah, they might fuck you at the end. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's important to know, I'm not attacking anybody. This is if Matt were to come to me, you know, and say, hey, man, you know, I want to get ahead financially or whatever it would be. I wouldn't, like, if he were to say to me, I want to get ahead, but I just can't. I wouldn't be doing my job as a friend if I said, yeah, you're right. There's nothing that you could do. You know, that'd be a terrible friend. Versus it's like, okay, Matt, I'd ask him, like, do you really want my opinion? Do you really want to do this? And it's like, yeah, you know, let's do it. It's okay. Cut this, stop doing this, start doing this, start doing this, start doing this, start doing this. And yeah, it's going to be really fucking hard. And there's going to be times where you don't want to do it. But I promise you on the other side, there's a very, very, very strong likelihood that you will increase, right, the probability of being, quote, successful, how you define it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm also not saying, of course, there are people who work hard who don't get ahead. But that's not what Matt and I are saying. You have to work hard and use your judgment along the way. That's why Matt's point earlier, it's like, yeah, hey, I want to be an intern and they were taking advantage of me. Yes, you have to make judgments along the way. So only you will know kind of the way to navigate. Also, you have to realize there's just reality to capitalism that sucks, right? Cowboys are no longer around. Cowboys used to provide real value to society. Well, since they invented fences, there's no more need for cowboys, quite literally. So if you're trying to be a cowboy, there's no need for it right now. And yes, that is a harsh reality, but better for you and us to talk about that reality rather than to think that you should still be a cowboy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also agree with Luke. I'm more predisposed to agreeing with Lucas's sentiment of like, yeah, dude, that's fucked up. Like, you should take care of people if you're like, you know, reducing somebody's time on Earth to like some like menial, boring, frustrating task. Like, there should be, you know, measures taken to ensure like, you know, that person's not like totally disgruntled, and it's like, you know, we could easily be moved to share resources a lot better. Like, I totally agree with all of that stuff. That's, you know, that's my ideal. And then there's the reality, which is like, but if you can't wait for all of society to come around, here's some, you know, you can kind of strap up your Rambo knife and take some wild steps. And this is kind of what you got to do, man. It's like, and dude, it's like, also look at immigrants who come here. Like, dude, I would work. We had me and my brother had the taco truck. We had 3 college kids work for us, and then we hired 1 Mexican dude. Dude, it was night and day. You'd have a kid like complaining like, oh my God, I didn't get enough sleep. Or you had a guy who was living in a house with like, dude, I think there was 2 other families in this house. They all shifted. Like, dude, people would be sleeping while someone else was working. The women would have night jobs. The men had day jobs, blah, 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 blah. Dude, and it's like, you're up against that, man. And it's like, I always admired it. I'm like, these guys are going hard. Dude, anytime, can you come in Saturday? Yes. Can you do this? Yes. Because there's the real need rather than the kind of like, well, here's like a thing I want because it would be cool and feel good. And then there's somebody dealing with the satisfying biological realities for people back home that they need to send food to. Otherwise, they will get sick and perish. And it's like, dude, it's, you know, you see that level of it and you start to, it kind of snaps you out of your kind of funk of like, we were almost in a daydream to some level in terms of the levels of comfort we have. You know, and when you get accustomed to certain levels of comfort, you get frustrated when they don't exist. But it's like, dude, like, and I feel like going forward as we become a more globally competitive, it becomes a globally competitive landscape. It's like, dude, you're going to be competing with people that are going to blow you out of the fucking water, man. Because it's just, they don't have the time for it. They don't have the time for thinking about this kind of shit. They're just showing up and getting it done. It's like, you know, because they just simply because they have to. And it's like, you know, there's something kind of I've always admired that, you know, because I've been on doing construction, all that stuff. You work with dudes who are immigrating from another country, and it's just like, dude, they are so fucking pumped to be sweeping a floor in a construction site. And it puts things in perspective where you're like, damn, maybe I shouldn't be a fucking, you know, like, now I'm talking about myself. I'd be like, you see this guy, like, yeah, I'm so happy I get to eat now. And you're like, fuck, I'm being a bitch. Fuck. So, you know, I think it's good to always have that in you, you know. And again, that always comes with you. You want to kind of make sure you know, take care of yourself and take a holistic approach, because a lot of those dudes who come here and immigrate, you know, you get that dark side of it, which people become like alcoholics, addicted to drugs, abuse their kids, all that shit. You don't want to do that. But again, like, there is something to that fire to, like, lighten that up in yourself and being like, you know, let me just get this done. Is this fair? No, but, like, I can't even be concerned with that because I just want to do that. Yes, it's all about connections. Yes, it's all about networking. And that's why I always look at, like, the fact neither of my parents went to college. They made sure that I did. And I always said that, dude, the main thing out of college, I didn't learn that much stuff, but it allowed me to interact with a network of people that my parents would not really get to interact with. So I got to meet people who's like, you know, families own hotels, families do this, family, blah, 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 blah. And then, like, you know, that was a intergenerational, that was started from my grandfather starting a recycling business for cardboard back in the 1940s, dude. And I got to go to college out of that. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm always hung up on the generational push. It's like, yeah, dude, like, my grandfather sadly ended up crashing a trash truck into a bridge, and, like, you know, he went out, he didn't, like, die in that, but, like, he was just going ham all the time. And it wasn't like he went out on, like, a bed of roses. He just fucking, you know, went as hard as he could and, you know, did what he did. Then it's like, then it's the next level. You get people to the point where they can start their own business. And, you know, that's what my dad and his brothers did. And now it's like, I'm like, you know, I'm the prince of trash, dude. I get to, like, go to college and, like, study philosophy. Like, I don't know if any McCuskers in my family lineage got to study, like, existentialism, dude. I'm the first one. So it's like, you know, I think one of my uncles did go, I forget. But to prove a point, it's like 10% of my family, if you said the word existentialism, wouldn't have any idea what you're talking about.
Right.
But it's because of all that hard work that 10% of us even get to understand what you're talking about, and my kids will have it even better as long as I don't drop the ball and fuck it up.
Yep.
So it's like, you know, and it's a weird space when you go from that to, like, your family not going to college, to you being the one to go to college, and you start to see this whole other vista of, like, you know, again, like, Wes, remember meeting people with trust funds being like, wait, your grandmother gives you $5,000 a month? And you're just like, what the fuck? You're like, that's a thing? And you're just like, holy shit. And you can keep spanning that out and be like, well, why don't I get that? And it's like, yeah, but someone's looking at your setup being like, why the fuck don't I get that? And it's always, the most important thing is being, you know, appreciating what you do have and just, like, flexing those gratitude muscles rather than, because right now we're drowning in the cultural message of, like, everything's unfair. Here's all these inequities. And it's like, yeah, it's totally valid. But it's like when you try to apply that to, like, that doesn't match one-to-one with the steps to advance you. It just doesn't. So, you know, it's like, it's a lot to juggle, but I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, Matt, I think you're spot on. It gets back to what you and I have talked about before: practitionership before being a philosopher. Like, because, like, there's so many philosophers out there and philosophy type of questions, but it's like, wait a second, have you done it? Like, and you have to really precisely define what done it has mean, because there's not one person I have ever asked to say, hey, do you work hard? And like, nah. Right? Everybody says they work hard. Everybody says they don't have time. It's like, no, okay. Well, if I had a camera over you, did you really do it? And have you been doing it for a really long time? Have you had to pay your own bills? Have you had to put food on the table? Like, all of those things. And if you haven't done it, it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So you read it out of a book. Like, the amount of people that tell me they don't like capitalism while they're searching on this iPhone is insane to me. You cannot become more oxymoronic than complaining about capitalism and work when you're tweeting on your iPhone. Those two things should not exist in the same sentence.
Yeah, there's also the, and I really am, I'm glad Lucas brought this up, because I think this is a valid perspective, and it's also something we have to learn how to deal with, of, like, you know, how do we navigate now that we're growing, like, all of us are collectively growing in greater and greater awareness, where, you know, now it used to be like, yeah, that's just how it is. Now people are like, well, should that be how it is? And it's like, you know, that's a whole other discussion. But, like, yeah, Wes, like, I went to school with people who would just be like, I'm a Marxist. And I'd be like, well, you're on Facebook and you're using social media, which is possibly the most aggressive expression of capitalism there is. And it's like by you doing that, you're literally feeding into one of the greatest acts of exploitation, which is people's personal, very private information for profit for companies that aren't sharing it with anybody. So how are you a Marxist and fueling that with your posts about how fucked up society is, and you're just feeding that into an apparatus that's just printing money just because, you're like, oh, my thoughts are interesting, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, oh, here's what you bought on Amazon last Wednesday after you looked at this website. It's almost irrelevant. And it's really depressing to think about. But it's like, and obviously, in defense of Marxism, it's kind of why we, like, our work week isn't us in factories at 12 and dying. It's like, that's where we got the 5-hour work week and certain days off because of that kind of thing. So, people get like, oh, this is better, this is that. It's like, well, there's a balance. You need, like full scale capitalism of like 12-year-olds falling off factory floors dead.
Worse.
Obviously, it's fucked up. But it's like being like, well, capitalism sucks, I'm a Marxist. It's like, well, that also didn't work out that well. So we do need this balance. But like, yeah, dude, it's like, it's just, you get people screaming about ethics on their iPhone. Like, you're screaming that into the most hyper-capitalistic void that is social media. And you're not moving the needle, man. It's like that. You're just throwing coal into into like something that's pulling apart the wealth gap in ways people can't even imagine. But either way, that's a whole different thing. But dude, sorry, I went off on a tangent. But yeah, man, like Wes is saying, it's like, oh, you can hate capital, you can do this. It's like, go live somewhere that hasn't done it. And that, like you were saying, Wes, be a practitioner. Go live somewhere that has like, as an entire country, serious money problems and hasn't figured out some sort of where they exist in a global marketplace. Maybe you'll love it there. It's like, then fucking move there. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not in a bad way. It's like, that's totally possible. But it's like, I remember being in Brazil and like getting shocked by the shower head that for some reason was plugged into the wall and being like, what the fuck is that? Like, this sucks. So like, it's these things that at least we're coming into, like, it's nice that we're coming into like the complexity of all these things. Cause yeah, it's not like, oh, this is the thing, that's the thing, this is the thing that works, this is the thing that does it. It really is, I think, the mix of everything. But yeah, man, underneath all of that is the physical steps you have to take to advance your life, which again, philosophy aside, is kind of a stark and naked reality that you either do or you don't. And it's really that simple.
Yeah, and again, it's not me trying to be a hard ass to anybody. This is me and you speaking to people who maybe are in those positions and saying, hey, like, you for sure can do it. You 100% can do it. Like, versus having the mindset of like, just cards are stacked against me, can't do it. It's no different than when somebody comes on the team and they say, hey, I want to lose weight. Every single time somebody wants to lose weight, they 99% of the time they'll say like, oh, I've tried everything, or I've tried all these things, it doesn't work, it's my metabolism, I'm big bone. It's like, bullshit. That's not true. If you stay with that mindset, you're never going to allow yourself to make progress. Or you say, okay, right, like, maybe I haven't tried everything, maybe there is a way that I can do this. Maybe I look at Jordan, who's lost 50-60 pounds, right? He's doing it, so I can do it. So it's for that group who is at a certain location who wants to get ahead. If you don't want to get ahead, great. No reason to even have the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's also too, it's like, and I think where the hang up comes is like, will you definitely get the thing you're after? Maybe, maybe not. But taking that kind of like, I just want to improve my life approach, you will absolutely improve it. You will 100% improve your life. Like, you absolutely will. And that's that's an attitudinal philosophical choice. It's like, do I focus on, because there's always a side, the negative, dark side of what's unfair and what sucks and what's shitty. Yes, that's always there, but it's like, which one do you focus on, or like what's actually good for you? When you're focused on things that aren't your direct unfair problems outside of your control, your awareness is then on the things that do lie in your control. And that's like, it's not fun to focus on those things, because that's the thing that asks stuff of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, dude, I think that's just a psychological mode that, it's useful to be in if you are after completely enhancing your experience, coupled with, again, like, I always like to tack on the meaning portion. Well, why? Simply just so if you're having kids, they can enjoy a better life than you did. And it's like, you pick up all the places, the balls that were dropped on your court, the kind of blind spots, and then you just go out in that direction and try to set it up to where your kids don't have to deal with that. And it's like, what's the point of that? I don't know. It just feels good. So yeah, dude, we're running a bit long, dude. We didn't get to check in with whatchamacallit, Francisco.
Can we? So one quick thought, and then if it's okay, I got to hit the bathroom quick. I'll be back in 2 minutes if you want to bring somebody on the hot seat, if that's cool. But the thing is, just so everybody knows my perspective on this, I am not grateful for the guaranteed rewards because they're not guaranteed. What I am grateful for is the chance to earn the rewards, because a lot of people in this world do not even have that chance. So I just want to make it very clear. That is where my gratitude comes from, not from if I go down this path, I have a guaranteed outcome, because that's not real. But I do have the guaranteed chance to try to go in that direction.
Hell yeah. I appreciate
I'll
that.
be right back.
Also, Wes, in terms of the, I think I'm going to start doing due to the week votes because it's already 12.
Yep. Go ahead.
I got to do something at 12:15. So I'm going to open up the polls, and then
Okay.
we'll check in with someone Monday.
All right. I'll be right back.
Absolutely. All right. Due to the week, dude. If you are if you want to get in the runnings, I was actually going to throw Lucas in there as well. It's funny. It read my mind. All right. I'm going to throw Ray in there. Who else, dude? Who else wants due to the week? I'm going to throw motherfucking Jordan in there as well. Ah, shit. I fucked it up. Jordan. Ooh, Troy boy. Good call. Throw Troy in there as well. Troy boy's out here going hard. All right, Tiger boy, not throwing your hat in the ring. That's fair. I'm smelling the due to the week for you as well. All right. 4 people. Anyone else? Whoever created Preparation Age should be due to the week. You are right, Jordan. That stuff is pretty nice. All right. Here we go. Poll is up. Lucas is in the lead. Ooh, split by Troy. It's a tight one. Ooh. Here we go. Dude, this is tight. It's a 3-way tie between Lucas, Ray, and Troy. Oh, boy. Dude, oh, my God. We might be settled on a 3. We might be bottlenecked into a 3. Oh. Ray's pulling out. Damn, dude. Oh, now it's between Ray and Troy. Still between Ray and Troy. Oh, my God, dude. Oh, man. This is crazy. All right, I'm going to give this 10 more seconds, dude. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, my God. And Troy just pulls out in the very end. 6-4-3 between Lucas, 6-1-3-3. Lucas, Troy, Ray, and Jordan. Oh my God, dude. Whoa. Oh my God. That was, dude, I thought that was intense. Troy, dude. I honestly thought it was Lucas for a while, and I didn't want to sway the polls, but dude, I do have I have a deep admiration for anyone who can bring up a counterpoint within a group that is mostly vibing on the same wavelength. So I always appreciate that. I really do. What the hell? Did I disappear? What the hell happened here? Oh.
All right, I am back, brother. I cannot see
Wes, you missed. I don't know what happened to me. I'm going to jump out and jump back in. Be 2 seconds. But can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm not sure if the guys can hear you. Guys, can you hear Matt?
I think they can hear me. I was giving the polls. Troy pulled out for due to the week, and literally buzzer beater, dude. I did a 10-second countdown. It was a 3-way tie. Troy just eked it out. It's crazy. It was unbelievable, dude. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, and I was also saying too. It's like, it was Troy 6 votes, 3 to Ray, 3 to Lucas, 1 to Jordan. And I was just appreciating Lucas's alternate perspective because I think that's the very thing that kind of can help people work through these issues. Because especially this can get kind of, I wouldn't say one note because there is a diversity of perspective here, but I really enjoy when people just kind of can have the gall to run counter to the force of opinion that's kind of flowing in a different direction. So,
that's what's needed.
Yeah, man. It's what helps people. Literally, what helps people think. Thinking is really just bouncing back between opposing alternatives. So, hell yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. No, Lucas, thanks for bringing that to the table, man. That's exactly what helps us work it out. And I think to these complex issues, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. It's what's your life circumstance and what you want to accomplish, and pick whatever is useful for you. So, all right, dudes. Matt, thanks for a great session, bro.
Absolutely. And it's funny too, because even if your life becomes, and I'm not saying this is like Lucas's, burning drive, but it's something I think about a lot. Even if your life is addressing social inequalities, you still need to take a day-to-day habitual approach to figuring out how exactly you're going. So like nothing escapes that thing. If you want to do something with your life, you have to direct conscious attention in a habitual and almost ritualized way, even if it is like being a priest. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's something I'm confident saying. Like nothing escapes that reality of like, well, if you want to do something, you have to take steps in order to do it. And so,
Yep.
So yeah. So either way,
100%, brother.
Wes, you the man. Also, let me know when someone reaches 4. I think Ray's right on the doorstep of 4 due to the weeks. Troy is pretty close up there. Yeah, so we'll see.
Cool. All right, dudes.
All right,
Have an
man.
outstanding weekend.
Later on.